Welcome to the Good Grind Podcast. I am Chris Enroth, horticulture educator with the University of Illinois Extension, coming at you from Macomb, Illinois, and we have got a Gardenbite for you this week. Today we are going back in time to 2021 when we sat down and had a talk with Professor Michael Ward at University of Illinois, who studies ornithology, and we asked him a slew of questions, listener-submitted questions about birds. And it's very timely. We talked to him in the winter of 2021. And so we are kind of brushing this off now in the winter of 2026. So enjoy this list of questions. We go into everything from, how often should we be feeding our birds, how to clean our bird feeders, how to deal with those ornery cardinals that like to peck at our windows, and a lot more. And if you're interested in seeing the entire conversation that we have with Dr. Ward, please feel free to check out our description down below, and we'll have a link to the full episode. And with that, enjoy.
I feel like I still have so many questions for you, Michael, but we are also a question and answer show. So we have to get to our homeowner questions today. So if you wouldn't mind helping us to answer these questions that have come in from extension offices and social medias.
Sure.
All right. So let's see. Katie, I think we have you kicking off the questions for this week, please.
Yeah. So our first question comes from McDonough County, and it comes from a local golf course that just built a new pro shop, but now this structure is very suitable for barn swallow habitat. Do you have any advice to discourage nesting where the golfers sit and eat?
Yeah. First off, I think golf courses are a great opportunity for bird conservation, right? So I worked on a golf course in Jacksonville, and the superintendent there was very interested in birds. And so we were able to, at the same time, provide good golfing experiences, use herbicides and pesticides and get birds. I mean, the question about barn swallows and trying to keep them from nesting on the ledges or underneath eaves is tricky. So the best way is to physically make it so they can't be there. So they sell sticky spikes, so just little plastic spikes that you roll out and stick on you can't see them very easily, but they make it so if the bird tried to actually build their mud nest, it would be difficult for them. So when you want to manage problematic birds like geese, we do a lot of research with geese. It's all about energy. So you want to make it more energetic, costly for them to do something that you don't want than it is for them to go somewhere else. And the thing, putting up spikes or making, like from geese, there's ways to make it so they don't like to fly because it costs a lot of energy. And so that's the way to think about it. So for the barn swallows, I would just go online, buy those spikes, put them up. They stick on their little plastic things. I definitely wouldn't. They sell things where they're like ultrasonic sounds, or they make sounds like owls. Birds are a lot smarter than people realize, and they're not going to fall for that. We work with crows. Crows are the smartest bird in Illinois by far. And so we couldn't hardly catch them. They're just too smart. You have to wear disguises. You can't drive the same car twice because they know the car's coming in. You can teach them to talk. I mean, and when you did catch crows, it's all like baby crows. They catch crows that are 1 year old. You can't catch adults, so they're just too smart. And so, people a lot of times, even geese, think geese are dumb. And that's until you start doing research on them and realize they're a lot more savvy than you expect. So putting out physical things to keep them from nesting is the way to go. I wouldn't waste money on some of those other approaches.
All right. Our next question comes from Facebook. Is people food like stale bread and crackers bad for birds? A lot of times people will throw those in the backyard and let the birds feed them.
Yeah. There's some evidence that, like, if you catch candy geese that are in parks and are being fed bread all the time, they have pretty kind of messed up, right? So it's essentially like us, eating junk food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's like my kids, right? So I got kids in high school, and they were just out there eating. And if they had their choice, they would eat junk breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? And so I make them not. So birds are kind of thing. They're going to think that the calories, they're going to like the calories out of some of the bread, but it's not providing the nutrients they want. So it's okay if you have, I do the same thing. If I have some stale crackers, sometimes I throw them up in the feeder, but you don't want to make it a staple of birds because it's just, they need the nutrients. I use nitroseed and sunflower seeds in my backyard. And, those seeds don't provide everything they need, because certain times of year they need insects as well. But it definitely, especially in winter, provides a lot of what they need to survive.
We have another question from Facebook. They're asking, we set our feeders far away from the windows, but we still get bird strikes. Is there anything we can do to prevent the birds from hitting our windows?
Yeah, so, millions of birds die every year from hitting windows. And so definitely have things you can do. We have an issue on campus right now where we're dealing with this. So there's a couple things to keep in mind. So birds hit windows either because they see the reflection of vegetation, or in some cases you have a lot of houseplants on the other side of the window and they're flying toward that. Or they see through your house, right? So they see through a window to another window and it's light on the other side, and they think it's a passage through a forest, essentially. And so the way to keep birds from hitting windows is to make sure they can see the window. And so there's a couple things you can do. Birds see in the UV, so they see the world differently than we do. So you can buy UV stickers that we can kind of see, but not really see, but birds really see them. Those work a little bit. I like to actually, on campus, what we're trying to do is put some strips, just some cloth strips in front of the window, and the movement of those, and you don't have to put that many, just enough so they know there's something there. That'll stop the collisions. What I had a problem in my house when we moved in years ago, and I determined that it's because they could see through kind of a breezeway area. So I moved a couch over so they couldn't see through there. And I still get some, now that I'm home, I've determined what caused it too. I still get some collisions. Most of the time is because the Cooper's hawk sneaks up on them on the feeder, and the Cooper's hawk has learned to scare them toward my patio, and they bounce off the window stunned, and then the Cooper's hawk has easy food for them. But there's definitely things you can do. There's lots of online resources. Like in Chicago, where there's a huge problem where like McCormick Place would leave their lights on all night, and birds migrating at night would find a McCormick Place, and they go around with a wheelbarrow and pick up all the dead birds every morning. Luckily, Mayor Daley, at the time, was the mayor of Chicago, and he was interested in birds, and his wife was interested in birds. And so they asked him to stop, and now they get maybe one or two a night. And so there's definitely things we can do to make a difference. And for people in their backyards, just putting something on the window so birds learn there's a window there can go a long ways.
What would you do about a territorial cardinal that keeps attacking a window?
Yeah, they're funny. I just said birds are so smart, and then someone will send me a picture of a cardinal smacking its head against a rearview mirror all day long. So I've had a problem in my yard about this. I put a paper sack over the side windows, and then usually, that'll stop them in the short term, but usually it's when their testosterone's building up. So males, in Illinois, in about a month, cardinals will be getting all pissy, right? So the males are trying to be who the subtleest male is to try to get the females. And so once that passes, you just got to get through that point, right? And so it's usually only a couple week period. And if you can kind of take measures to stop it, then they'll kind of figure it out on their own and it'll be okay. But it can be annoying. I mean, woodpeckers do the same thing when they peck on your house if you have wood siding. And so they're usually not trying to get insects. They're just trying to sound like a big, studly woodpecker that's making all this noise. And it's hard, right? So you got to put out something to stop them from, some metal flashing in certain areas. But usually it's a short-term thing and it'll go away.
All right. Our next question is from Facebook again. Should we feed birds all year? My feeders are not very busy in the summer. When would be a good time to start and stop if we don't do all year?
Right. So as I mentioned earlier, I think that from a population level, it's probably, except for maybe hummingbirds, not making a difference. So you could feed all year if you want to. It probably wouldn't make much difference. If you look at your activity at your feeder, this time of year, they're going to be a lot more active because they're a lot more stressed for food. And so if you're doing bird feeding to try to help the individuals in your neighborhood, the individual birds, and to see them, what I do is I start feeding kind of the end of migration, which in Illinois is November. Then I'll go through like beginning of March. If you want to go longer, you'll get some other interesting birds showing up, like rose-breasted grosbeaks or indigo bunnings, those kind of things. But you can feed all year round. You're not, people talk about, well, you're causing them to not migrate, which that might be true in some cases, but if they weren't going to migrate, they were going to die anyway. And so, one thing that's hard for people to, especially if I go to Audubon Society, is the concept that birds die. That's the way it is, right? So birds produce a lot of offspring. If the offspring all lived, then we would be, swimming in birds. And so birds die. It's kind of the way it is. But we've got to think big picture onto how we can maintain a population that is either stable or increasing. And bird feeding is maybe a small part of that, but it's more habitat driven than anything else. And so I think that it's up to you. You can feed whatever you want, but you get your most bang for your bucks in terms of seeing birds in the colder months.
Our next question comes from McDonough County, and their backyard backs up to a cornfield. They've set out black oil sunflower seed and Niger seed, but all they ever get are little sparrows. What can they do to attract birds like cardinals?
Yeah, I get people saying that sometimes. There are, like McDonough County, I guarantee you, there's lots of cardinals. One thing is cardinals like to have some bushes around. So if you're down in the open area and you don't have any, especially if you're out in a big ag field and you don't have any trees or bushes, cardinals don't move around that much. They're non-migratory, so they might not be there in the summer. And so it might be good to plant some trees or some bushes that'll bring in the cardinals. Especially in agricultural areas, you get a lot of house sparrows, which we don't like. But if you set up multiple feeders and kind of try to just, you're only going to have so many house sparrows in the area, and so multiple feeders, you can kind of space them out, and they can be aggressive. But I would suggest adding a couple feeders and planting some trees, and that way, by doing that, you'll get not only cardinals, but like in McDonough County, you should get blue jays, maybe titmice, maybe black-capped chickadees, maybe goldfinches. It's just that a lot of these birds get nervous. They're not programmed to be in big open areas. And so there's some interesting research on, just like us, right? So if you grew up out in the country and you drop you on the Lakeshore Drive, you get a little antsy, you get a little nervous. Well, the same thing, you drop a bird that's in the forest into the middle of a cornfield, it gets a little nervous, right? And so you got to provide some more structure for it to start taking advantage of your bird feeder.
Our next question is from Cass County. Do we need to provide water in the winter, or do birds use snow?
So some birds use snow. Birds have a very high metabolic rate, which the byproduct of that is they use a lot of water. So if you do put a heating element out for a bird bath in your backyard, you will get a lot of birds taking advantage of that. That's also why this time of year, especially like today when it's so cold, if you go by a stream that actually has open water, you'll see lots of birds there because they need a certain amount of water to maintain their metabolic activity. I don't know that you providing water is saving any of them per se, because they've all kind of evolved to deal with cold temperatures. But if you do want to enjoy birds, putting out a bird bath with one of those water heaters, I've seen those where it's amazing how many birds take advantage of that over the course of the day.
And then our last question for the day comes from Hancock County, and this person saw an online instructional video for cleaning bird feeders with apple cider vinegar. Does this work to kill diseases?
Probably. There's a disease that I see. Actually, I saw a bird this morning in my feeder with it. It's kind of like a pink eye that house finches and goldfinches get, and your eyes swell shut. And they do likely transmit that at thistle feeders. And so cleaning them is a good idea. I probably don't clean mine as much as I should, but for me, if I fill up the feeder, it takes about a month for them to get through the feeder most times. And so maybe every other month, I'll try to clean it out a little bit. I typically just use Dawn and water and just clean it out. Vinegar probably work better. It's really just a problem for birds that are called finches, house finches and goldfinches. And it's just disease they get in their eyes. For most other birds, we don't really see diseases at feeders causing big problems. But I don't see why apple cider vinegar would be a problem. And especially if you have lots of goldfinches or house finches, which I know some people do, especially in southern Illinois and kind of southeastern Illinois, you can have a feeder with lots of those birds. It's probably not a bad idea to do that every couple weeks, or probably every time you fill up the feeder wouldn't be a bad idea.
Well, that was a lot of great information all about birds and their care and feeding them, especially this time of year when they are a mainstay in our landscapes. One of the key ornamental features for a lot of us as we look out of our windows to a very brown and gray landscape. And so it's nice to have a little bit of movement and color out there with our feathered friends. Well, the Good Growing Podcast is a production of University of Illinois Extension, edited this week by me, Chris Enroth. Hey, listeners, a big thank you for hanging out with us today, enjoying these throwback gardening questions with Dr. Ward. So we'll have more coming at you next week. So listeners, thank you for doing what you do best, and that is listening, or if you watched us on YouTube, watching. And as always, keep on growing.